Good morning. Good morning, Her Excellency Ambassador Malgorzata Wasilewska, Ambassador, Head of Delegation of the European Union Delegation to Barbados, the Eastern Caribbean States, the OECS, and CARIFORUM, Honorable Venerava Brown, Minister of Urban Development, Energy, Seaports Development, Seaports Administration, Grenadines Affairs, and Local Government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you if you're joining us from the Caribbean, or good afternoon if you're joining us from Europe. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on trade and investment opportunities in the maritime services, ports, and logistics in CARIFORUM region. My name is Tamira La Cruz. This webinar covers findings from the 5th study in a series of studies commissioned by the European Commission to gain insights in business opportunities related to CARIFORUM Economic Partnership Agreement, the EPA, and to enable EU private enterprises to foster business partnerships in the region. Before I give the floor to our distinguished speakers, I would like to thank you all in advance for your participation in this webinar. The webinar will consist of a number of plenary sessions with a Q&A.
Realizar un grupo de sesiones.
These will be followed by a panel discussion. We would like to give participants the opportunity to listen to all speakers in the time they have reserved for this webinar, so I kindly ask the speakers to observe the time allotted to you. I will give you notice when you have 1 or 2 minutes left. I take the opportunity to remind everyone of the Zoom etiquette for the event. Please go ahead and introduce yourself and your business in the chat, and do make connections. That's why we are here. Your microphones will be muted, however, throughout the webinar. Kindly put all your questions in the chat. My colleagues, many of them working behind the scenes, will either answer in the chat or bring your question to the floor. Please also note that the webinar is being recorded. Feel free to keep your camera off in case you would not like to feature in the recording. And at the end of the opening session, we will request you to turn on your cameras for a photo. This may be posted on social media. You may keep your camera off if you do not wish to have your picture posted on social media. As we proceed with the event, polls will pop up on your screens. We would appreciate if you answer the questions. I'm now pleased to invite Ambassador Malgorzata Wasilewska, our host for this event, to open the webinar. Ambassador Wasilewska, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can. I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Honorable Minister Venerava Brown, Minister of Urban Development, Energy, Seaports Development, and Seaports Administration in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, other CARIFORUM representatives, distinguished panelists for today's discussion, consultants and business people from the CARIFORUM and European Union, other participants here today, welcome. Today we will be discussing a topic that is an integral part of the day-to-day operations in CARIFORUM countries. All of these countries depend on the maritime services for the transport of goods to their ports, including the 12 islands, which have no choice as they are surrounded by water. The ongoing global supply chain crisis and the unusual delays in shipping routes has magnified their dependence on this critical service. Maritime services have also come to the fore in the narrative on intra-regional travel within the Caribbean. This service has not returned to its pre-pandemic levels and continues to deteriorate due to its prohibitive cost and reduced connections. The negative effects of this on business, leisure, and personal travel has brought the option of sea travel to the fore as a viable alternative to the traditional air travel. At the other end of the spectrum, as a tourist destination, cruise tourism represents a significant contribution to the more than $60 billion tourism industry in the Caribbean. The EU CARIFORUM EPA, as an all-encompassing trade and development agreement, includes provisions for maritime transport as a service sector in CARIFORUM. The EPA covers maritime services across most of its modes of supply, cross-border services, commercial presence, and the movement of natural persons for business purposes. The EPA's liberalizing provisions comprise international maritime transport, maritime cargo handling services, customs clearance services, container station and depot services, maritime agency services, and freight forwarding services. The agreement also provides unrestricted access to the international maritime markets and trades for commercial purposes on a non-discriminatory basis. This non-discriminatory treatment for EU suppliers is also extended to related fees and charges, customs facilities, and the assignment of berths and facilities for loading and unloading. Additionally, the EU and CARIFORUM states granted to each other national treatment, which entails that maritime service suppliers from each partner countries are allowed to have a commercial presence in their partner's country under the same conditions of establishment and operation as local companies. This is a key facilitating element for investments. Services at the port of entries that were open for business to EU maritime transport suppliers by the EPA are wide and varied. They notably include pilotage, towing and tug assistance, provisioning, fueling and watering, garbage collecting and ballast waste disposal, water and electrical supplies, emergency repair facilities, anchorage, berth, and berthing services, just to name a few. The EU is acutely aware that inadequate transport options significantly limit trade, including agri-food trade and regional economic growth and integration in the Caribbean. This problematic is one of the main focuses of the new EU strategy for external action, the Global Gateway Investment Agenda. This initiative is the EU's contribution to narrowing the global investment gap worldwide by using public financing to leverage private capital and investment for projects that deliver on strong public policy objectives. Improving intra-regional maritime transport is one of the regional priorities defined in the EU's agenda for the region. It is also worth mentioning that it is also one of the flagship projects identified by the G7 Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment at the gathering in Hiroshima in May of this year. I would also like to mention that the EU has been and will continue supporting Caribbean connectivity under its Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument. One of such notable interventions is the EU's support to enhancing food security, which includes a transport-related component implemented with the Caribbean Development Bank. That action aims at facilitating investments in port logistics and distribution networks, leveraging on private and CDB's funding. EU's other types of support could include studies, expertise sharing, capacity building, financial blending, and so on. In addition, the new EU Inter-Regional Programme 2021-2027 will be available from the beginning of 2024 to receive project proposals for cooperation between the French Caribbean regions and the Caribbean countries, including in support of joint transport solutions. Beyond these particular programs, the EU stands ready to further discuss regional challenges and priorities in terms of maritime transportation, and this is also one of the aims of today's event. We have to mobilize all possible instruments at hand, be it trade-related, such as the EPA, or development-related in support of this key sector. Whether it is global shipping shortages and delays caused by labor scarcity and prolonged port turnaround times, or just the need for other viable options for transportation in the region, we can all agree that maritime services are not only relevant, but also apt for investment at this time. And the EPA is there to facilitate the inflow of EU capital and expertise. I hope that through the discussions today, there will be some follow-up action specifically in the form of the needed investment in this sector. I wish you all a successful webinar today, and please don't hesitate to let us know how our delegation can be of assistance of any such concrete ideas for investment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your remarks, Ambassador. It is good to hear that, and thank you for especially mentioning the dependence of the countries on the maritime sector. You also mentioned the issues with the global supply chain, and you mentioned inter-regional travel. And thank you also for the excellent summary on the EPA, the Global Gateway, and other interventions or programs that the EU supports in the region. Thank you very much. It is now my pleasure to invite the Honorable Minerva Brown, the Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, for opening remarks. Minister, the floor is yours.
Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Thank you, Chairperson. I will adopt the established protocol. I am Minerva Brown. I'm the Minister of Urban Development, Port Administration, Port Development, Grenadines Affairs, and Local Government here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. To the organizers, I am grateful for the opportunity to present opening remarks at this webinar on maritime services, ports and logistics, and investment opportunities in CARIFORUM. CARIFORUM serves as a base for economic dialogue with the European Union. This webinar on marine services, ports, and logistics is just one of 9 priority sectors as part of the ongoing project to contribute to a more strategic EU business presence in the region. Taking into account regional dimension in line with market integration goals of CARIFORUM-EU EPA, the agreement which aims to make it easier for people and businesses from the 2 regions to invest and trade with each other, and to spur economic growth across the Caribbean through facilitation of market access and preferential conditions for Caribbean goods, services, and practitioners, and represents a high level of commitment by the European Union than in the General Agreement on Trade and in Services. Maritime trade is a critical component to enable economic sustenance in our region. This is necessitated by geography and the insularity of the CARIFORUM member countries. It is estimated that 90% of our goods in the region is transported by sea. In an ever-changing world, the level of competitiveness of the CARIFORUM economies is directly affected by the ability to be competitive in marine and maritime services. Our maritime sector continuously faces new challenges, which forces our maritime professionals to adapt quickly. To secure the future of the maritime field and logistics, countries must manage all aspects of these challenges and be able to find sustainable and economically feasible solutions. As trade relations between the EU and the CARIFORUM expands in maritime services, regional institutions such as the University of West Indies, the Caribbean Maritime University, University of Trinidad and Tobago will all continue to play an important role. Our economies are linked to tourism also. So in this context, not only is the movement of freight essential, but passenger transport via yachting and cruise sectors become equally important. While the EU grants 100% duty and quota-free access for all goods coming from the CARIFORUM states, the CARIFORUM countries are to phase out duties gradually, with products and services considered sensitive and are entirely excluded from liberalization and allowances for further safeguards, such as the implementation of the quota if a surge in EU goods threatens local productions. There's potential through the CARIFORUM EPA EU agreement to attract investment and increase revenue generation through maritime logistics services, which will derive other benefits for the citizens of our countries. Despite the significant commitments undertaken by EU, the full benefits of the EPA are not realized by the CARIFORUM states, as market entries and export earnings from CARIFORUM have not yet substantially improved thus far. Trade balances between the parties still need to be addressed. There remains need for continued effort from all parties to optimize the potential of this agreement. Decisive steps to mobilize industry actors in order to increase transparency and simplify procedures, particularly in cross-border mobility, is required. And this webinar forum is one of the steps to increase awareness for all stakeholders on the specific opportunities and requirements for EU and CARIFORUM states. We are to be reminded that the effective implementation of provisions foreseen under the 2005 Convention to the CARIFORUM-EU EPA can decisively support the EPA signatories in attaining their 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, Sustainable Development Goal number 8 and Sustainable Goal number 10. Infrastructure also forms a critical part of the maritime trade system. Taking the discussion home to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the government of St. Vincent, through my ministry, is currently implementing the Port Modernization Project, where a cargo port is being constructed in our capital, Kingston. This physical infrastructure project is critically important to the future and development of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and will ensure that my country is strategically positioned to maintain that maritime link to the outside and have a climate-resilient infrastructure, providing efficient port services, and be ready to capitalize on future opportunities where they may be presented. To complement the physical infrastructure, the opportunity for review and updating of legislation, tariffs, and institutional arrangements will ensure a more efficient services within the framework of trade facilitation. In this post-COVID, post-Brexit environment with CARIFORUM states subject to the fallout of rising price inflation, wars, and logistics supply chain disruption, this timely effort for increasing awareness of the potential and the possibilities under the EPA is truly appreciated. I thank you for having me, and I look forward to the fruitful discussions that your webinar hosts will bring to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you for the remarks, Minister Brown. Thank you very much. Thank you for bringing up the educational institutions, the Caribbean Maritime University, the University of the West Indies, and the University of Trinidad and Tobago, yachting, the importance of the yachting and cruise sector for the countries. Thank you for bringing up also the port modernization efforts in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and the need for infrastructure improvement in general in all the Caribbean countries, also in regard to climate resilience. And finally, for stressing the need for a continued effort to improve, to optimize the benefits of the EPA. Thank you very much. May I now, having had the two opening remarks, may I now please invite all participants and speakers to switch on their cameras for a photo. Smile, please, and Alison will take the photo and will let me know if all went well. Thank you. Remember to smile.
We need more people on with cameras. Thank you. Can we have some more cameras on, please? I'm only seeing a handful. All right. Say Maritime.
Maritime.
Oh, can we have, just want to take another one. I'm still only getting a few persons on. Can I invite you please to open your cameras? Thank you so much. Beautiful smiles now. Say Caribbean, CARIFORUM, EPA, any one of them after 1, 2, 3.
EPA.
1, 2, 3, EPA.
EPA, thank you.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alison, very much also for that encouragement. So here's the first poll. If you can just fill it in, it's what is your familiarity with the CARIFORUM-EU EPA? And we hope that at the end of the session, you will be more familiar than when you started. Okay, very good. So we have the majority has at least some familiarity with the EPA. At least 75% have some familiarity. Thank you. We will continue with the session number 1. In this session, we aim to provide you with an overview of the main business opportunities in maritime services, ports, and logistics that have been identified through the study, both through stakeholder interviews and desk research. We spoke with a lot of people in the region and also in Europe. This session also includes a presentation of the key provisions of the CARIFORUM-EU Economic Partnership Agreement relevant to the facilitating trade in maritime services, ports, and logistics. First up is Mr. Jan Hofman, head of the Trade Logistics branch of UNCTAD. He will set the scene by providing an overview of global trends in ports and shipping and the implications for the Caribbean. Over to you, Jan.
Thank you very much. Welcome to my home office in Geneva. Very happy to be back in the Caribbean. Just 2 weeks, a bit more ago, I was in Barbados preparing our supply chain forum, to which I invited you in the chat. Please check the link. I have a slide on this. Without further ado, let me then directly go to the fantastic share screen button, and you should now be seeing something that says Global Trends in Port and Shipping. That was the idea. Thanks a lot for the invitation. So UNCTAD is here to be with you. United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. There you have my office on the photo, and not really maritime transport, but even here on the Lake Geneva, we have some little ships, and we have a propeller club of the Port of Geneva. Well, I will mostly present the review of maritime transport, but a bit like in a good James Bond movie, let me start with the story so far, like the pre-film a little bit. Now, what happened in the long term? In the long term, we see an improvement globally. This data is for the United States, but it's a global improvement that we spend less and less time on warehousing and inventory holding, and instead spend money on transport, which is a good thing because it means things are not waiting, but are actually moving. Long-term trend in the United States, 1980, the logistics expenditure was a higher share on inventory holding than transport, and today is twice as much on transport than inventory holding. Another positive trend, I call it positive in the sense of trade development, the typical distance traveled for the average ton of cargo has been going up, meaning all countries trade with all countries all over the globe. A third positive trend is the participation of developing countries as a group, not only providers of raw materials. The red bar here is the loaded goods like exports of raw materials, of iron ore, coal, soybeans, oil, but also more and more importing, the blue bar, the unloaded goods, and participate in globalized production. These are global averages. Not every country participates in the same way, but it is a global trend. And then came COVID. Freight rates went through the roof. Freight rates, the red bar, or even more what the ship operators had to pay to charter the ships. If we had more time, I could now spend 1 hour to explain the demand and supply dynamics and some data, but you have seen it. And what did it mean? It meant higher prices. At UNCTAD, we are really proud. Before we saw inflation surge globally, we already simulated that inflation will go up by 1.5 percentage points if we have and keep these high container freight rates. And to this group, I don't need to explain acronyms. Small island developing states, SIDS, went up much more. And many of you in the Caribbean, you have seen it, you have felt it, you have paid for it. So often we say transport, it's only maritime transport. Of course, I know I'm preaching to the converted, but maritime transport matters. And we have seen during this crisis how it matters, in particular to smaller, further away and island states. What happened since? We are back. Just for you, updated this weekend is the latest freight rates and so on. We are back to where we were before and can now analyze what actually happened during COVID, or what is the impact? What did this mean, this global supply chain crisis? Interestingly, this first trend I showed you, in the United States, expenditure on inventory holding went up. Bad news. All these problems, this congestion in ports, all the containers in the wrong place. Although freight rates went up, expenditure on inventory holding went up even more, because here you have percentage share. Now we do think and expect, if I look into the future, that with the improvements made during the pandemic, the improvements in port operations, logistics performance, digitalization, pre-arrival process, there are many things where we in UNCTAD have seen improvements, more demand for our Secuda programs, for single windows. We think and hope and expect that we will go back to the more positive trend. Same with the distance. During COVID, all of a sudden, the distance globally went a bit short. I mean, it's really a hiccup. It's not a major trend, but the very latest, and I come back to this again, distances are increasing. And then also this trend, the share of developing countries, for the first time since we look at this data, since 1970, the share of developing countries decreased. That had to do with the stimulus package, with all of us, like myself, buying a bigger screen, my wife buying a home trainer, all these things that were bought in especially US, Europe, Japan, while in China in particular, we had more of a lockdown. But the very latest data trends, we seem to be back to the previous track. So that's the pre-movie, like I'm here, your James Bond, and now we start with the main part of the movie, okay? Our review of maritime transport. We are very proud of this. We produce this since 1968. We do it ourselves, no consultants. Of course, we benefit from a lot of data, a lot of collaboration, but some selected points for you to set the scene. The biggest challenge in maritime transport for the next decades will be the energy transition. And let me start out here, a key message I want to get across. The past transitions, energy transitions in maritime transport were self-funded. Now you see when you moved from rowing to sail, from sail to coal and steam, from coal and steam to oil, the new technology was cheaper. With the alternative fuels and the new fuels currently being introduced, it seems that they are more expensive. Like they're less energy dense, ammonia, hydrogen, green methanol, they're more expensive than a ton of fuel. But if we manage to make the polluter pay, if we include all costs, if we internalize externalities, then the new alternative fuels are less costly because climate change has a cost. It's just that currently those who cause climate change are not really paying for it. So we want to reduce emissions, but they have still been going up. This chart is the one most frequently quoted from our last review. We want emissions to go down, but during the last 10 years, emissions from shipping have gone up by 20%. On the good news, if you now compare to the tons and ton miles, the emissions have gone down because trade has grown even more than the emissions. So the emissions per ton mile, so that's the good news. And I'm terribly sorry, I'm going to spoil even the good news. Half of this good news, half of the improvement of using less, burning less fewer or emitting less CO2 per ton or per container, half of the improvement is due to economies of scale, because ships have been getting bigger. And that's not good for many other reasons, and it's not feasible for the Antigua and Barbudas and St. Vincent's of this world. You cannot accommodate, and it's really bigger ships. So that is a challenge, energy transition. Something about the seaborne trade and markets. This is basically the growth rate of shipping, of maritime transport over the years from 2000 to 2024 forecast. Goes up and down, overly up, slightly decreasing trend. But I'm showing you this above all to show how the ton miles in most years have gone up more than the tons, meaning ships go even longer distance. And that means you need actually more ships per ton than before. If you look at specific commodities, grain, other dry bulk, the green one here, and oil, all have gone more and more over longer distance. And here you clearly see the impact of the war in Ukraine. Egypt now has to buy grain from Brazil and the United States because there is less grain coming out of Ukraine. Oil exports from Russia now no longer go to Europe, but they go to India and China, longer distances. So we have not only growing trade, but we have trade also going over longer distance. On the other side, that was demand, supply, we have fewer ships being ordered. We have ships getting older. We need more ships. We need different ships, newer ships, but unfortunately, the order book is very, very low. It went even more down at the beginning of COVID, but then now it's 10%. It went up to 50% in earlier years in the extreme. So we are really worried that we will have a shortage of fleet in the coming decades because of uncertainty, people waiting. We don't know what fuel to invest. We don't know what will be the carbon price. We don't know what will be the IMO regulation. We don't know if the ports will be ready. The ports don't know if the ships will be ready. So they pass the ball, or the chicken and the egg. This is a very concerning chart here. Sorry, this is all ships. If I were to look at this for container ships, right now there's a certain boom, there's a fear of an oversupply. But with the profits that were made in container shipping and the boom and bust in other moments in history when we had such a boom, we would have had even more orders of new container ships. A little bit on, like, in the way we are moving now to solutions, to ports, to digitalization, to trade facilitation, to connectivity. Here you see that very, very simple, big picture. The typical waiting time of container ships in ports. Long-term average, developing countries are worse than developed countries. You see the blue line is above the orange line, meaning the container ship that comes to a developing country tends to have to wait longer before the port and in the port. During the congestions, especially Los Angeles, but also other Western countries, so during COVID, you saw the orange line going up even more than in developing countries because of these stimulus packages and the congestion, and the ports were not ready. There was also underinvestment in the US. Another part of this story, the very latest data, I got a couple of days ago from our provider, MDS Transmodal. Two sides of the same coin. Long-term trend, ships get bigger, that's the blue line, and there are fewer and fewer companies. The Hanjins go bankrupt, the Hamburg Süds are purchased by Maersk, other companies leave a specific market. So that's the long-term trend. However, the very recent years, ships are not really getting much bigger anymore. And during the last year and a half, almost 2 years, actually the number of companies have slightly increasing. And so that would be another, if we had time, I could spend another 2 hours discussing the container ship developments and market and concentration. But interesting part also for the Caribbean, because if that's the global average, if you have 14.7 companies providing services from and to your country, that's okay, even if it used to be 19. Yeah, you see, it went down from 19 to 14. But in many Caribbean countries, it may have gone down from 6 to 5, from 5 to 4, and in smaller Pacific islands. So that's not good for competition. Two key developments in IT. We did see, and I mentioned it, the positive trend, like further digitalization. That's a bit on the demand side. We had to improve, we had to invest, we had more demands for Assikuda single windows, for digital solutions, transit information. But also we have this tremendous AI developments. Amazing topic, I love it, but it's, maybe for discussion. Now, who leads the IT reforms in your company, in your port, in your shipping company? Is it the CEO, the CTO? It was, from our experience, COVID-19 who led the reforms. And that was good. When the pandemic started, we did a policy brief on 10-point action plan. Just one point from here, which I feel just a week ago, I had a little argument on LinkedIn. Somebody said there's a trade-off between either, like a balance, no? Either I facilitate trade or I control and ensure revenue and so on. Please, it's really, really the wrong picture. The balance is the wrong picture. There's not a single measure in the WTO trade station, in the World Customs Organization recommendations, UN CFACT, UNCTAD programs, all of our proposals, from risk management to single windows, to more transparency, to pre-arrival processing, to digitalization, to collaboration at the border, to advanced ruling, all of these help achieve both. Important message in terms of advancing. Don't believe a customs officer who tells you, no, I don't want to facilitate trade. Now, which measures are particularly important? And I'm fully aware that all those people who confuse correlation with causality, all these people will eventually die. Yeah, but there may be some causality here. And here we have a correlation between those countries who have implemented the single window, Article 7.2, the electronic payment 7.2, risk management, authorized economic operators, or border agency cooperation. These are specific articles in the trade facilitation agreement of the WTO. Those countries also have a better container port performance index of the World Bank. And I think there's some causality here. So these are measures where we feel it seems to be worthwhile to invest in these, because they seem to be particularly helpful to improve your port performance. Challenges and opportunities. Long ago, I had no gray hair, and I worked for ECLAC and did these type of studies. And we are updating, we are working with CARICOM, with ECLAC, with AEC. The story is still the same. So the picture here is the chicken and the egg. You don't have a lot of intra-regional trade because there's not enough transport. You're going to have transport, need more trade. And you are aware of it. I appreciate the study that is being done with EU, with I know that Caribbean Development Bank is working on study. It's a continuous challenge. There's also the right chart here is about competition. The fewer companies there are on the service, the higher the freight rates. So we have to go towards a positive spiral, a virtuous circle, where we encourage trade, but also have the transport services. And we are on the right track. We do see improvements. We do see improved ports, improved trade facilitation, improved transparency, availability of information. It's still not quite enough, but I think, yeah, this is the challenge. You are aware of it. And now this context to the decarbonization of maritime transport, and a key message we have also in a recent policy brief: delaying the transition is more costly than the transition. Bear with me very quickly. Speaking to an economist, demand and supply curves. Demand is very inelastic. That means you need a big change in the freight rate to have a small change in volume. And supply, once you reach a limit, a maximum, you cannot, just the prices will go up. We saw it during the crisis. Now, if we have some carbon levy or some measure, yes, the supply chain will go up. But if we don't have enough ships, Remember the blue chart I showed you before. If we have underinvestment, if people wait, if we have uncertainty, we have high interest rates, we have banks, shipyards, everybody's waiting. Ports are waiting for ships, ships are waiting for ports. I'm sincerely concerned, and in the policy brief, we don't have this chart. We have described it in some nice words, but the message is this one. The danger of delaying and creating uncertainty can lead to more supply chain crisis, food crisis, high prices on the islands, more than please moving ahead, we have to decarbonize and take decisions. So there are, I conclude, 3 opportunities. Caribbean countries can also become providers of alternative fuels. Yeah? If we have an economic measure, a levy, something agreed at the IMO, we can show that this money can be invested in port infrastructure, in trade station, in connectivity, and help reduce trade costs. Yes, let us not cheat ourselves. The energy transition, decarbonization, shipping will somewhat increase freight costs. But not doing it will make it even more costly, and doing it with an economic measure can actually use to invest. Overall, that's not only the Caribbean. The world has an opportunity. The maritime industry has the historic opportunity to be ahead of the curve. We have one multilateral framework. It can shape one global multilateral framework. No free riding, no somebody out of it. So I think this is an important opportunity. And my last sales pitch, please join us 21 to 24 May 2024 in Barbados, where we will have much more time than I had during this short intervention, and I hope I see you all there. This was from the review, and it's of course a big teamwork. I do share with you the acknowledgement of all the co-authors and team who produced this. So far, thank you very much.
Thank you for that very loaded information, presentation so loaded with information. Thank you very much. Thank you for mentioning the challenges and the opportunities. And you mentioned energy transition as one of the opportunities. It just so happens that the EU Global Gateway for the region, one of the on the agenda is green transition. So that is a good, that goes together very well. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman. Again, please remember to put your questions in the chat if you have them. Now, to lead into the rest of our roster of speakers, I, as part of the consulting team, will outline the key business opportunities in maritime services, ports, and logistics, as outlined by shareholders, by stakeholders, and what we found in desk research. Let me just call up my slideshow. Oh, sure. So I will present an overview of the key findings from the study as it relates to business opportunities. The findings are based on stakeholder interviews and desk research. A lot of what I've had to say, or what I have to say, have been said already, but that's a good thing. The first slide is 7 facts about the CARIFORUM seascape. Many of the countries are small island developing states, but there are also big ocean states. They are islands, so they have coastlines and exclusive economic zones that are many times their terrestrial surface. So really the opportunity is at sea or at the coast, which we've seen already. They are open economies. On average, the trade as percentage of GDP is 100% in CARIFORUM. That relates, or that compares to 57% as a world average. So the countries are open. Someone already mentioned we depend on freight, transport of freight to get our goods. So open economies, a lot of maritime opportunities. CARIFORUM is host to the 4th, 5th, and 6th largest container terminal ports in Central America and the Caribbean. That is behind the ports of Panama and the Port of Cartagena in Colombia. These 4th, 5th, and 6th are Freeport in the Bahamas, the Port of Kingston, and the port container terminal in Dominican Republic in Caucedo. These 3 are all managed by international container port operators. They are in Jamaica, in Kingston, the French CMA-CGM, in Freeport, the Hutchinson, and in Caucedo, DP World. Interestingly, I think someone mentioned that, the Minister of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 1 in 3 global cruise passengers come to the Caribbean, 33%. That was 18 million last year, and that was still 65% of the pre-pandemic levels. The next biggest market where cruise passengers go is the Mediterranean, that's 22%. So you can see how many. The industry is expected to grow about 15% between now and 4 or 5 years. That means that our cruise terminals have to be maybe expanded, upgraded, etc. CARIFORUM is the host to the fastest growing economy in the world. Guyana is expected to grow 25% in 2023. That is because of offshore oil and gas. That also it's offshore, so there's a lot of maritime opportunities there. The countries are middle to high income countries. That means that their educational, justice, social services, the level of these are pretty high compared to global standards. And the countries are vulnerable to climate shocks. A lot of need for adaptation and mitigation, especially because a lot of the economic livelihood is at sea. This table gives you a few of the numbers. We already mentioned the number of port calls. We mentioned the Bahamas, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, but also Trinidad and Tobago has a lot of port calls. I would like to draw your attention to this third column that speaks to the performance index, logistics performance index, and then the connectivity index of Guyana. We mentioned it's the fastest growing economy in the world. It has to do with offshore findings, so there's a lot of room for improvement there. With regard to maritime needs and opportunities, these are many are current projects as outlined in the brochure that you will that will be posted in the chat. You can access them. Some of the initiators are presenting in this webinar a little bit later. We spoke about the maritime infrastructure, container terminal, cruise terminals, harbors, technology, also mentioned by Mr. Hoffman. We speak about the connectivity services, inter-island shipping, ferry service, travel, also mentioned previously, cold storage, docking, etc., logistics hubs, etc. A lot of opportunity to exploit the blue economy. It is large. There's a lot of maritime, a lot of sea around the countries, aqua and mariculture, and other marine products. In a previous webinar, a Finnish company was setting up a factory in the Dominican Republic to process sargassum into marine products. So that's a real big opportunity also in the other countries. And there's a need and opportunity to protect the coast. Protect the coast, adapt and mitigate both the public infrastructure and the private infrastructure. No need to say again, to make the countries and their ports and their maritime environment resilient to climate change and climate shocks. Business modes, again, invest. You can invest, public-private partnerships, performance-based contracts, green and blue bonds, trade, materials and equipment. A lot of it is imported. My colleague Pablo will highlight these, what the EPA makes, how the EPA makes these more attractive, as well as services, consulting, engineering, maintenance, capacity building. If you're interested, you can find procurement notices for public projects at the Inter-American Development Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, CARICOM, but you can also find them on the websites of the maritime companies that are state-owned enterprises. So you go there, you can find what the opportunities are. Just a word about the EU Latin American Caribbean Global Gateway investment agenda. The Global Gateway seeks to create partnership where the public sector of Europe and Latin America and the Caribbean link up with the private sector to generate business investments. This is the EU LAC Global Gateway. The agenda for our region is green transition. So that was also mentioned by Mr. Hoffman. Digital transformation, also mentioned in Mr. Hoffman's presentation. Human development, mentioned by the Minister Brown in terms of the universities, and health resilience and vaccines. Those are investment agendas. What have stakeholders said that they are the competitive advantages of European firms in our region? Many European firms have experience with the blue economy because they themselves have extensive blue economies. Think of Spain, Greece, Portugal, even France and Italy. Experience with the blue economy islands, experience with managing sea levels. To mind comes the Netherlands, experience with managing sea levels. Focus on sustainability and also on quality. Europe is very strong in those two parts, and the European Partnership Agreement will increase the attractiveness of investing in the region. What are the key challenges for European firms? As we've heard from stakeholders, they're relatively small markets. Most of them, the Dominican Republic is a large market, and Jamaica in some sense also, Trinidad also, Guyana, its growth is also making it a large market. Generally limited human resources. The business enabling environment, it's not Europe, no, it takes a little bit more effort. And since the countries are often small, its businesses is also often related to, based on relations. So it's not easy to go alone. It's good to have a local partner. They will show you the way. And many people have also mentioned there's limited European presence in the region. If only there were more European chambers, there's a few, but not many, and other European representation, it would be good. So in conclusion, the ocean and the maritime sector is an important source of income for all CARIFORUM nations. Their coastal and marine public and private infrastructure has room for improvement a lot. There are several ongoing projects as we speak. Some of them will present later. Guyana is the fastest growing economy in the world. It needs and can now afford investment in the maritime sector. CARIFORUM countries look favorably to European investors, products and services because of their quality and focus on sustainability. And the EPA and the EU Global Gateway increase the attractiveness of investments in the region. So those are the findings with regards to business opportunities. So I will now give the floor to my colleague, Pablo Quiles. Pablo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Tamira. And Jan, if you're still around, I hope that you managed to get a haircut in Barbados. And please let us know if that was the case. For those of you that know, Jan travels so much that he usually has this joke around in LinkedIn that he takes
my
haircuts
haircut in
everywhere he
Barbados.
goes.
Thank you so much. I'll put the link with the empirical evidence in the chat. Thank you.
Perfect. If there is no LinkedIn post, it didn't happen, Jan. So thank you for that. Well, thank you very much, Tamira. Tamira, please remind me, I have what, 15 minutes? Yeah, I will take that as a yes. Well, thank you very much for that. My name is Pablo Quiles. I'm the manager of trade advisory services at International Economics Consulting Limited, and it's my pleasure to provide an overview of what are the key provisions of the Economic Partnership Agreement as they relate to maritime services, port, and logistics. Before perhaps we start and we dig into the matter, the EPA, the reason that we are all here is bilateral, reciprocal, preferential, yet asymmetric trade agreement, right? Bilateral because it happens between the European Union and the CARIFORUM member states. Preferential because it gives preferences, it liberalizes trade between the two parties for both trading services and trading goods. is reciprocal because each of the parties provide preferences to each other. Yet it's asymmetrical, given that the European Union on the one hand, or gives, for example, in regard to trading goods, the European Union liberalized the whole tariff schedule, while the CARIFORUM member states were not necessarily to do so, right? There was a percentage that was granted, ranging between 85 to 95%. So that's the distinction. But as well, in this session, I could not continue without saying happy birthday to the EPA. It turned 15 years old this year, as the EPA entered into force in 2008. Before we go deep and enter the specificities that the EPA brings in relation to the maritime sector, I just want to give a very brief overview of what are the different content of the EPA. On the one hand, and you'll see there are two main pillars, right? You will see on your left-hand side of the screen, you will see the market access and then the enabling environment. Market access establishes the rules that set the liberalization for both trading goods and trading services. As I mentioned before, with regard to the European Union liberalized all of its trading goods for the CARIFORUM member states, while the CARIFORUM member states liberalized a given percentage, right? The same a little bit happened with regards to trading services. Of course, there are no tariffs applicable to trading services, but in this case, the different member states, both the European Union and the CARIFORUM member states, provided a set of commitments that liberalized the way that they regulate, and that they allow operators from, in this case, the European Union and the CARIFORUM, to operate in each other's territory. So in this particular case, we see that a lot of sectors have been liberalized, that were open, as they say, open for businesses. And as one of the particular characteristics, especially for trading services as they relate to the negotiations, is that while trading services are particularly important for businesses in the sense, and as that this is how it links to the second pillar that you see on your screen. Trading services provide certainty for operators in the way that they conduct business, right? Whether we see particularly whether a sector has been liberalized in the negotiations, particularly we see in the schedule of commitments, we see none across the different topics, the different modes and the different sectors. That provides certainty to the operators, in this case European operators, that there will be no restrictions, especially not to market access, or especially on the 6 restrictions that exist there, but as well no discrimination towards national treatment, right? So this is as well how this market access and national treatment links to the fact that perhaps one of the most relevant features of the EPA, and I say perhaps because my heart is divided whether it's either market access. One of the key elements that provide the EPA is the enabling framework. It establishes rules for transparency, it establishes rules for competition, and as well, of course, tariff liberalization. But for me, the rules on transparency, the rules on competition, this are perhaps the ones that truly create a supportive business environment, for investment, trade, and as well development. Just perhaps as an overview of the key provisions of the EPA, the EPA establishes some set of provisions with regards to competition law, especially with the need to apply competition law, to establish competition law to the sectors. As well establishes the regularization provisions that we have set. It as well open rules and establishes rules regarding investment, trade and services, and as well in e-commerce. The maritime sector, given its importance, as very much specified by both Tamira and Jan, to world trade and to the economies of the region, has its own set of rules that we will go further into an analysis. But perhaps one of the most relevant as well rules that apply to the EPA with regard to the maritime logistics and port sector could be related to the public procurement. In this particular case, the EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement, establishes a set of principles or rules that need to be followed with regard to the tendering process. Especially, and I think that I will never get tired of saying this, these rules promote transparency, and especially it provides accountability. For me, and I keep saying this whenever I have capacity building missions, it's whatever the FTAs might not, they might provide tariff preference, they might provide for the liberalization of tariffs, they might provide for the market access, but one of the key things that these FTAs achieved, one of the key things that these FTAs are meant to do as well, are to promote transparency, transparency, and transparency. In this particular case, we see that the rules of transparency with regards to public procurement relate to the fact that the procurement process must be published. All the laws, regulations, decisions must be published, and they must be done so in a timely manner. Together as well with the dissemination of tendering opportunities and the relevant documentation, right? The fact that make all the rules, all the regulations are publicly available, so that the different players, the different operators that are interested in entering the market know the different rules that they apply with. Even in the trade, of course, we are here talking about the services trade, but even in the trade in goods world, we see that one of the key elements that is the most damaging for business sectors and business operators across the world is, on the one hand, the lack of information, the lack of access to information, but together as well, the lack of transparency. If we give transparency to the private sector, they will know which rules to abide with. The second key provision with regards to public procurement regards to the methods of procurement. And again, everything is related to the fact of making everything clear. The procurement methods, like whether they are selective, whether they are limited, they must be clearly stated so that the tendering process, the selection criteria, the deadlines for the participation are very, very much clear, and they are aware of to the potential companies. Linked to the above, the technical specifications as well has to be made clear, and especially as well here we have an additional requirement to whether it's preferable that these are based on performance and functional requirement rather than descriptive documentation, but descriptive standards. As well, one of the key elements with regard to this is the fact that CARIFORUM countries, and as well the European ones, should aim to treat domestic and foreign suppliers equally. So that's the extension of the national treatment, so that both European Union companies and CARIFORUM companies based in CARIFORUM member states can apply to the public procurement opportunities that exist in both regions. Of course, there is a limit, a threshold. In this particular case, the CARIFORUM-EU EPA focuses on a limit of a special joint rights of 155,000 for supplies to services and 6.5 million for works. I think I will ask my team to specify how much is that in dollars, but I think that the minimum is around $200,000 and above. So that was with regards to the public procurement rules. As I said, this is mainly about transparency, and please do not underestimate the power that rules on transparency can have for private sector. With regard to the key provisions on the maritime sector, we see that the Article 109 of the EPA specifies that by what do we understand by maritime sector is maritime transport, cargo handling services, customs clearance services, container stations, etc. This particular, the EPA further expands the principle of unrestricted access to international maritime markets and trades on commercial and non-discriminatory basis. So one of the key elements, for example, that the EPA has established to create a more stable business environment is the introduction of a ban on cargo sharing agreements in future bilateral agreements with third countries. That applies to both the CARIFORUM, but as well the European Union. This has been a rule that has existed in the European Union for a long time. It's as well ask the different parties on both sides to terminate cargo sharing arrangements that might be already in place, and of course avoid any unilateral measure that could restrict or discriminate international maritime transport services. The same way that we have market access, we have as well, as I mentioned before, the non-discrimination, the national treatment services. And the parties in this case have agreed to make the following services such as pilotage, towing, provisioning, captain services available to international maritime transport suppliers on both reasonable but as well non-discriminatory sense. There should not be a discrimination because of the flag on the charges and on the availability of the services that you have on the screen. With regards to the cross-border supply of maritime services and how this relates to the different commitments that the parties have made, we see that in the EPA, the Dominican Republic, Guyana, and Jamaica are the three countries that have made the most open markets under the EPA for cross-border supply of maritime. We only see that there are 4 cases where countries in the region have reserved the right to maintain market access and national restriction in a particular subsector like Trinidad and Tobago, Belize, and so on. Perhaps it's important here to highlight as well that when we say that a market is closed or a sector is closed, it is closed in the negotiation sense. It doesn't mean that, for example, a particular sector is closed in Trinidad and Tobago for the sake of this example. It only means that the country has reserved the right to apply and implement the set of regulations that it might require or it might desire in the near future. But for example, we see that the Dominican Republic has fully liberalized most of them. That means that other countries in the region have not. So the República Dominicana has provided an extremely safe level of environment to the European operators, while the Trinidad and Tobago has decided that it has given the right. Trinidad and Tobago, St. Christopher and the Nevis, Belize as well. They have secured the right to further regulate the sector in the market. It doesn't mean that the sector is closed. It doesn't mean that the sector is not currently available or is not currently, or that European companies cannot currently operate in the market. But it also means that countries like the Dominican Republic, Guyana, Jamaica have established in this case a level of predictability, a level of transparency that other countries do not. And we see as well, for example, the most CARIFORUM countries have opened the markets to cross-border supply. Apologies. With regards, and as well, one of the most interesting areas that would be interested for European investors that are looking forward to operate in the region would be particularly the rules on investment, and especially Mode 3 in regards to the commercial presence. The EPA established the different commitments that the countries, in the case both the European Union and the CARIFORUM, but in this particular presentation, we're focusing on the CARIFORUM side. And what are the particular requirements that the different markets have committed themselves into? We see that particularly with freight transportation and services such as towing services, there is a requirement for joint venture. So they established a requirement for both European operators to enter a partnership with Caribbean operators in order to enter the market, as for example, in the case of Belize. In some others, for example, in Antigua and Barbuda, we see that the country has kept the right on national treatment to discriminate towards foreign companies. We see as well that in the Dominica, the country has been quite liberal with both freight transportation and maintenance, because national treatment, as we see within the case of Grenada and Guyana, has been as well one of the areas where the countries have chosen to discriminate and keep. They have chosen to keep the ability to establish discriminatory measures with regards to national treatment. And similar, for example, in Grenada, passenger transportation, a joint venture might as well be required, as we'll see at St. Lucia. St. Lucia and Jamaica have also decided to secure that possibility to apply that measure in the future. Overall, and I hope, Tamira, that I'm within my time. Just a very as a very quick summary of the EPA, we see that the countries have agreed to open between 65 to 75% of their services sector, and tariffs up to 87%, right? Well, we see that European have provided 100% of the trading goods liberalization. The CARIFORUM side has on to the 87%. I will not get tired of saying this: the public procurement, especially with they relate to transparency and competitive tendering process, is one of the most important rules of the EPA, publishing of procurement-related information, the procurement methods, and so on. The EPA also has rules and does liberalize to some extent international maritime transport services. It's important to mention, of course, here that this is common across the European Union and most countries, that cabotage services are excluded of the EPA. So cabotage understood as the provision of shipment and cargo services between two ports of the same country, but it as well overall creates and generates a stable business environment, and as well as it prohibits the introduction of cargo sharing arrangement. It as well facilitates the temporary presence of professional and business persons, as we have, for sake of timing, we didn't cover this, but the EPA as well has specific rules with regards to Mode 4, movement of person, and both the CARIFORUM member states and both the European Union have made commitments on this particular area. Thank you very much for your attention, and Tamira, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pablo, for the extensive explanation. If there are questions in the question, you can put them in the question and answer now. And there will also be a poll on your screen if you would answer those. Thank you. So there's a question, there's going to be a poll on your screen. Pablo, can you stop share? Thank you.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for the poll to appear on our screens, I will go ahead and start the introduction for the second session. In the second session, we will have 3 speakers who will share the market outlook and challenges in this sector as experienced by the private sector. Each will have 10 minutes to do so. For the study, let me give you some chance to read this. So have the presentations up to now improved your knowledge of the CARIFORUM-EU EPA agreement for the maritime sector? while you continue that, there's been a very good improvement. Thank you very much. Very well done. Thank you. So over 80%, a good or significant improvement. Thank you. So continuing with the second session, as I was saying, study as well as for the other sectoral studies under this project, the team has made use of the generous input from the Euro chambers in Trinidad and Tobago and in the DR, the Dominican Republic. The Euro chambers are the voice of European businesses in CARIFORUM. For that reason, we started sessions with an introduction from these chambers. The first speaker was supposed to be Mr. Gianmarco Pau Fernandez, from the president of the Euro Chamber of Commerce of the Dominican Republic, who has provided tremendous support. But unfortunately, he was held up at the last minute, so he cannot present. We do have his presentation, but that will be sent to you at the end of the webinar. So unfortunately, Mr. Gianmarco Pau Fernandez cannot be here, but we will go ahead and then have Dr. Axel Kravatsky, president of the European Business Chamber in Trinidad and Tobago. He will give an overview of the various exciting opportunities for investment in Trinidad and Tobago in the maritime sector. Dr. Kravatsky, we are pleased to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you also for the very interesting presentations thus far. I would like to speak about 6 opportunities that are currently within Trinidad and Tobago in the maritime services, ports and logistics sector. The European Chamber in Trinidad and Tobago is the main voice for European businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. We are advocating and defending their interests. We're also a key point for European investors wishing to explore investments and partnerships in Trinidad and Tobago. And we're also a key partner for European institutions. There are 3 pillars to our work. One is advocacy. Then we are working as trade support, and we also support climate or sustainability action. There are 19 areas of concern relating to trade that we are monitoring, and we are supporting European companies to explore the viability of doing business within Trinidad and Tobago and supporting Trinidad and Tobago companies to explore viability in Europe. We have a long-standing commitment to sustainability, and we have a number of different actions there. And the Sustainability Champion Initiative is one of those within that context. When we look at the maritime sector, we can, Trinidad and Tobago being very closely where the oil and gas sector is very important, the maritime sector has been closely tied to this. For a long time, the government has been committed to diversifying. And so there are additional and new opportunities within the sector that goes beyond oil and gas. But some of the opportunities that I will mention here are linked to that sector at the same time. And when you receive the slides, you can have some of the links that give you further information. So the first opportunity is, for example, in education. So here we have a EU-funded project in the Maritime Technological Cooperation Center. And here we have a maritime faculty, and it is one of 5 centers around the globe that is funded by the EU. There are additional opportunities, collaborations with the EU. There are additional opportunities in there, for example, relating to energy efficiency or to low carbon technology development or to the development of green ports. So infrastructure overall and the transition is an important sector, is an important topic that is including in this sector and beyond. There are other schools also that, for example, the University of Trinidad and Tobago Caribbean fisheries has an important link. The MIC has a relationship with Germany, and so that could broaden the space of collaboration in education. A second opportunity has to do, for example, with Proman, which is a company based in Switzerland that is producing and transporting methanol. And it has made a big transition into shipping using methanol. And some of the first ships, the LK99, will soon be arriving in Trinidad and Tobago. And the overall trend and the overall opportunity is to position Trinidad and Tobago as a hub for cleaner maritime fuel, and methanol is such a fuel that can support that domain. So as this sector is developing, this is a particular opportunity, including for docking. A third area is one that has been long on the books, but where we are assured that this time it will happen. So there's a public-private partnership being launched in 2022 with the support of the Inter-American Development Bank. And this has now been signed this year. And so this has to do with the preparation, project structuring, strengthening policy of attracting investors to launch a public tender in this process. And as I said, this had a number of false starts, but we are in close contact with the IDB, and we are assured that this time it is a real opportunity. And the slides contain the link that give you more information about this specific opportunity. A fourth opportunity has also been long in the making, and there are very encouraging signs of progress, where a gas field close to Trinidad and Tobago in Venezuela, there is an agreement now that has been hindered by some time by the sanctions and other aspects. But now that is looking to move forward, and a particular license between Shell and the National Gas Company to operate the Dragon field for 25 years. So that would provide assured volume of natural gas to Trinidad and Tobago. And this would boost the gas production and the export capacity. And at the moment, there are two different pipeline options being considered. And as soon and as that is being then finalized, you can see progress in that whole field. And so all the support services related to that should see new opportunities developing from that. There's also a dry docking facility in Chaguaramas and La Brea being considered. And so this is also something that has been developed. There's an old large facility in Chaguaramas, and there's a new facility in La Brea, which is again currently, going environmental clearance and so forth. But it is something that will be, these are two topics that are waiting to be acted upon. Then there is in Chaguaramas the yachting industry and the services associated with that. There is an existing policy by the government, and it is a sector that is currently dominated primarily by small and micro enterprises. And with the Trinidad and Tobago being located below the hurricane belt, it is a highly desirable kind of location where there is support by the government to invigorate this sector. And so it's an opportunity for exploration and investment as well. So these represent 6 specific opportunities within Trinidad and Tobago that we would be glad if investors are examining, and we are ready to support investors to do so. So that would bring provides a summary within 10 minutes of my of the opportunities. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carvazzi, for sharing these promising concrete opportunities in 10 minutes. Very interesting indeed. Very interesting indeed. Our third speaker is Mr. Nico Sayers. He's the manager of port projects at the Port of Antwerp in Belgium. The Port of Antwerp has a collaboration agreement with the Port Authority of Suriname. Mr. Sayers, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
So.
Yes, we
Okay,
can.
just go to full screen. Okay, so I'm also going to try to be as brief and efficient as possible. So a lot to talk about Suriname, but I will try to do it in 10 minutes. Camera. Yeah. Okay, so basically the country of Suriname, a bit of the country context. Yeah, it's a relatively small country. Yeah, so it's about 5 times the size of Belgium. It only has the inhabitants of 500,000, which is about let's say the population of the city of Antwerp. The capital is Paramaribo, where most of the population actually also live. And a big advantage for people who are coming to Suriname, at least for the Belgian and the Dutch people, you can speak Dutch. So our language is not so much commonly known throughout the world. But for us, it's pretty easy to do business, to communicate, to talk to people, because we can speak our local language. Suriname, yeah, like most of the other countries, has been suffering quite a lot from inflation. So basically, yeah, you need twice the amount of money to buy something that you did like 2 years ago. So that's of course a very big challenge. The country was a former colony of Holland. That's also why, of course, we speak the Dutch, and it has 1 international airport and 2 major maritime ports. So Havenbeheer Suriname manages the port of Paramaribo. And for the moment, the biggest competitor is considered as Dingsing, which is a private terminal a few kilometers further than the port of Paramaribo. Havenbeheer Suriname, so yeah, about Havenbeheer, they are not a port authority as such, but they are a port management company. So that's a bit of a difference in the governance, and also when it comes to, let's say, legislation and governance overall for the maritime sector in Suriname. It is a bit of a bit of an issue, because we are missing actually quite a direct, let's say, a port legislation. But anyway, let's say the Havenbeheer as such is doing quite good. So they manage the port of Paramaribo, which is also the biggest port in Suriname, with about an annual average turnover in containers of about 100,000 TEUs. There's also a smaller port in Nikeri and some few let's say, smaller jetties like in Albina for, let's say, to connect the country of Suriname to French Guiana. But I think also, let's say, more important to tell a bit about, why I am here. So I work for the Antwerp Port Authority, actually, and we have been in a partnership with Havenbeheer Suriname for the 3rd year now. And why we do this? Because we, as Port of Antwerp, we need other ways, let's say, to grow as a port platform. So even though the Port of Antwerp has merged with the Port of Zeebrugge, we, let's say, can no longer grow with the existing space and the existing possibilities that we have to grow as a port. Also, there is a second very big challenge for us in the Port of Antwerp is that we need to be, according to EU legislation, we need to be carbon neutral by 2050. So we need to reduce our emissions in the port by 2035 by 50% and completely to zero emissions by 2050, which talking from the point of Antwerp point of view, yeah, we are the #1 polluter actually in Belgium. So you can imagine for us, that's a huge challenge. And to cope with these challenges, we need partners. And Suriname is one of those possible partners. So you can see here a bit overview that, let's say, the Port of Antwerp is internationally investing and diverting its portfolio throughout the world. You can see that also we have already have done investments in a private port in Brazil. We are constantly present in the port of Duqm in Oman. We manage the port of Cotonou in Africa. We have partnerships with countries like Namibia, Chile, we are in India, we're in Malaysia. So you can see that we are basically, we as an Antwerp Port Authority have a very important internationalization strategy. And Havenbeheer Suriname is for us, yeah, a big partner in that. Huh? So many opportunities. We are not just there because we want to be there, although our partnership is based on a very historical relationship. Of course, we are also there for a reason. And I think Port of Antwerp can be, let's say, an important factor or an important player into, let's say, this whole new energy transition phase that Suriname is going through. Right? So there are a lot of opportunities there. We really believe that Suriname is more like a sleeping small giant, perhaps, but we really believe in their possibilities. There is a huge oil and gas potential coming their way. So, but mostly that will be offshore, of course. We hope it will get a lot of revenue for the country of Suriname, but let's say in terms of jobs purely and add value, most of these activities are offshore. But also onshore, there are a lot of things coming their way, like shore bases, a lot of logistics development, a lot of investment potential is coming their way. And also there, we believe that Havenbeheer can facilitate in that further growth. Specifically to mention one subject or one topic that we covered as Port of Antwerp. So we are really there constantly. Somebody from Port of Antwerp is present in Suriname, and we are helping them, amongst others, with creating their new corporate strategy. And so in here, this is also my final slide. You can see the new vision that we together as Port of Antwerp and Havenbeheer made for Havenbeheer Suriname. And you can see clearly that, it defines our green ambitions. So we want to become a reliable carbon neutral logistics partner. So we want to be there for our clients. We want to facilitate growth. We want to facilitate for oil and gas business to ramp up the economy, and also hopefully ramp up the investments and the revenue for Havenbeheer. But we want to do it in a very sustainable way. So even though, as also the president just mentioned a few days ago, even though we are Suriname is a carbon negative country, they actually swallow the let's say the emissions from Europe, but there is still a lot of effort to be made in making, let's say, the industry, the economy, the ports also emission free. And that's one of the subjects that Port of Antwerp is assisting and facilitating for Havenbeheer Suriname. I don't know about the timing, but I think I'm pretty close to 10 minutes. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. You're very, very, very well within the time limit. Thank you, Mr. Sais. Very interesting, the point of partnering to achieve carbon neutrality and energy transition. That is a very interesting sort of insight or way to look at it. I had to laugh at the beginning. I'm from Curacao, so I also speak.
You also speak Netherlands. Easy, easy.
Yeah,
And
and I'm
also
going to-
some people from Suriname following the presentation, so we can continue in Dutch.
And so I'm going to Suriname tomorrow, and from Curacao, in Suriname, to get anywhere in the interior, it's like 3 hours, 4 hours. So when you say it's a small country, I'm like, whoa.
It's a small country, it's a small community, but yeah.
Small country.
I'm a big fan, so.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
And the next person up is Ms. Isalia Lopez. She is the Deputy Director of Promotion of the General Directorate of Public-Private Partnerships of the Dominican Republic. She will speak to the importance of PPPs for maritime infrastructure projects. Ms. Lopez, the floor is yours.
Hi, can you give me one moment? She's connecting. So sorry for the delay.
No worries.
But she was supposed to go at 11:40.
Oh, we're running ahead of time. No worries. Does anyone have a question in the chat, or anyone? Anything you'd like to ask? So if I may ask, Mr. Size, are you still here? So why you chose Suriname because of their carbon negative sort of position?
Yeah, it's a long story. Yeah, actually, it started already 30 years ago. Actually, so we in Port of Antwerp, we also have, let's say, in the maritime world, a very famous known training center, I think it's called, and people have been coming to Antwerp for maritime trading since more than 40 years, and that's how historically it started. People from Suriname coming to our trainings, and we developed a professional relationship, and that's what, let's say, the basis of our cooperation. And then we decided to, let's say, intensify a bit this partnership, and then assist them with this new strategy, which I told you briefly about. And also there, of course, we hope as Antwerp, we recognize the potential, and we see the ambition that Suriname as a country wants to grow, based, of course, on oil and gas. That's normal, but also have this specific carbon neutral, let's say, image or strategy in mind, and that particularly can be interesting for Antwerp to develop something in the long term.
Very good. Thank you.
See how it goes.
Yeah, thank you. Good luck. Yeah, success.
Thank you.
Mr.
Cruz, if you've got a spare moment, I have a question for Mr.
Sure.
Cruz.
Go ahead. Yes.
I don't know, Nico, if you noticed the Trinidad AmCham, the Trinidad European Chamber of Commerce. They mentioned that there is interest in Trinidad in making the main container port here a private-public partnership. Did you pick up that, and would the Port of Antwerp Bruges be interested at all in something like that?
About Trinidad, you mean? Or are we talking about new port of New Nikkei, or we're talking about Trinidad?
And Port of Spain.
Port of Spain.
Yes.
Of course, we monitor that, and we as Port of Antwerp, also, again, like I said that briefly, so we're open to all kinds of partnerships, because, like I said, our port platforms are saturated, and we need partners throughout the world, and of course there is no, let's say, no real limit or something that we don't want to look at. But of course, we are there now, very close in Suriname, so we need to see. If we don't have it specifically on the radar, but everything, of course, is open for discussion.
Yeah, thank you. I see Dom Rep is ready now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sorry about the. I look like an avatar. I'm sorry.
No worries. You look. Go ahead.
Oh my God. Now.
Oh yes, now. Yes. Good.
Now. That's really the way I look.
This way or the other way? No. Go ahead,
Well,
Ms. Lopez. Go ahead, Isalia. Yeah. Gracias.
well, thank you very much. I'm sorry because of the delay. I was in a meeting right now, and I would like to talk to you about Puerto Duarte. For me, it's a pleasure to be here. Greetings to all the attendees of this webinar. I'm Isalia Lopez. I'm the Promotion Deputy Director of the Dominican PPP unit. And for me, it's an honor to be here again because last month we were sharing some information about the PPP program in the Dominican Republic. So right now, in this case, we're going to talk about port infrastructure that calls Puerto Duarte, that proposes a solution for the development of an existing port in the northeast of the Dominican Republic with the aim of developing and promoting tourism in the province of Samaná. Right now, you can see the information about this project. So you can see Duarte Port proposes the rehabilitation of this existing port, and it's a DB foam. And the term of this contract takes 3 years to the design and construction, and for O&M, 30 years. I think we can move forward and talk about the incentive key data from Confatur that we have available in the Dominican Republic. Because we're talking about a PPP project that is related to the tourism, we must highlight the tax advantages that could be considered for the development of the Duarte Port by potential investors. It's important to highlight that we have available for investors in port infrastructure, our terminal cruise ports, the special tax regime of Confotur, which companies that applies to this incentive can be exonerated. It's 100% of income tax, national and municipal taxes on building permits, including land purchases and import taxes and other applicable taxes on equipment, material, and furniture that could be necessary for the first equipment and startup of the tourist facility. So right now, we talked about the Confotur, but we must talk about the tourism in the Dominican Republic, key facts that are really, really important. Because Dominican Republic right now is the main destination of receiving of tourism in receiving people from around the world. The last year in 2022, we received almost 10 million tourists in Dominican Republic by air and by sea. And I think that was due in part of the responsible tourist development program that was articulated with the public sector and the private sector. For us in the Dominican Republic, we have very clear that communion between two parts are very important in order to develop the tourism, because the tourism in the Dominican Republic represents the 16% of the GDP growth. So we're going to talk about next about the Duarte Port currently, how it is right now. Duarte Port is located in the province of Samaná, as I mentioned before, and is nearby the Las Americas Highway and the Northeast Highway. It has nearby airports of El Catey in 10 minutes, and we have the Puerto Plata Airport and Santiago Airport that maybe going to take maybe 1 hour to get there, but is really close. This port can operate 2 vessels at the same time and have the port certification, the ISPS. So it's a very interesting feature for this. And currently is being used by a company called the Barrick Gold. This is a Canadian company they are importing mining machinery for their job. The port is a free port for by law, which allows it to use it as a free trade zones, stores, and for establishment of assembly center and other things that can be interesting for investors. So the port really has great opportunity to the development. But we're going to make now. I'm going to start first with the first phase of the structuring of this initiative, of PPP initiative. It's important to mention that this project was a unsolicited proposal. It came from the private sector, and it was admitted on March 2021, according, of course, with the guidelines for the presentation of unsolicited proposals. And that gave us the green light to begin with all the assessment of the initiative, the definition of the procurement authority, and the authorization to carry out all the feasibility studies for this project. As well, I think one of the most important and valuable things about the structuring of this project was that we received the technical assistance from the Commercial Law Development Program of the United States, the CLDP, with USAID funds, hiring a transaction firm who, with the technical team of the DGAPP, of the PPP unit, and the procurement authority, Apordom, finished the feasibility studies and presented the project to the National Council of PPPs. And finally, we proceed with the declaration of public interest of this private initiative on unsolicited proposals on June of 2021. Having that done, in June, we made a market sounding in Miami with operators and cruise lines in order to contrast and validate all the scenarios that was presented or was submitted by the proponent, with the aim to make adjustments that were necessary to make the project bankable and more attractive for other peers in the cruise industry at the time of the call of the bid. So on August 2022 was launched this tender simultaneously at the same time of the roadshow that took place in Florida and Mexico. We did that with the company of Apordom, which are the champions of the project, Pro Dominicana, and as well the CLDP joined us in the meetings with all the operators and private sector that took the time to hear about this transaction. The total investment that was proposed by the proponent of this project was $68 million. Although it was that number at the beginning, the bidder that could be awardee in this process, it could use the amount they need because they had the chance to accommodate the project, but the type of business model they are dealing with every day. So this is only referential. As well, it's important to mention and highlight that the Dominican PPP framework has two-stage tenders. First, we have the RFQ for the validation of the capabilities of the legal, technical, and financial of the bidders. And you have a second phase for the request of proposals that the PPP unit received on January this year. So the project was awarded on February this year as well, and the dry close took place on September, last September, the 8th of September, and with a pordón of the SPV that was created for developing this interesting and important project. Right now, we are collaborating with the SPV, with the private part, in order to have the financial close process. So maybe this is the key dates are important in this project. It's the first PPP project that has been signed in Dominican Republic. In Dominican Republic, we've been moving very fast. We only have 3 years having this PPP program. Has been very challenging, but very rewarding as well. So for us, it's really a great opportunity to share very fast in 10 minutes what we have done with the first project under the PPP model in Dominican Republic. I think I don't know if I have time, but I would like to show you a video. Maybe Monica can share that video with us. You can tell me, Tamira.
Go ahead. Yeah, how long is the video? Oh, go ahead. You have some time.
Okay. Perfect. I'm sorry.
Hey.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
Yes, but well, it's okay. It's okay, Tamira. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking us through that.
It's in Spanish.
It's what? It's in Spanish? All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for taking us through that. Very interesting, and we know we've heard many times when Gianmarco Pau was with us. He's explained to us the I don't want to say aggressiveness, but how diligently the Dominican Republic is working towards its future. Very, very impressive. Thank you very much, Isalia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Someone is asking if you can then share the link to the video, maybe in the chat. That is a good idea.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Just go ahead and if anyone else has a video to show in the chat, please do. So we can all see what your projects are. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamira.
No,
See you again.
Gracias. Sí. Ciao.
Bye.
Next up, we don't see. There's someone in the chat. Someone's asking about contacts with regard to propose services regarding energy efficiency and transition. If you are the contact in your country or your company, that you are the one who does all the procurement for energy efficiency services and transition, please go ahead and answer the gentleman Gregory Gailey in the chat. So he will get some contacts. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you, Gregory.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we have now arrived on time and the session number 3, which is a panel. You will have the opportunity to hear from some speakers on their experience on what. Oh, there's a poll before that. Sorry. Do you find the information provided by the investment promotion agencies, that would be the chamber of your chamber of the Trinidad and Tobago, and Ms. Isalia Lopez from the PPP promotion in the Dominican Republic, do you find them to be helpful? A resounding yes, I think. 73% yes, thank you. So moving ahead with the panel, So the panel is about some opportunities and some experiences in the maritime services, ports and logistics sectors in CARIFORUM. Our panelists are Mr. Darwin Telemaque, the chairman of the Port Association of the Caribbean, Mr. Jean-Stéphane Roule, founder and CEO of CaribsLink. He is based in Martinique and they do shipping. And His Excellency Ambassador Dr. André Thomas, Chairman and CEO of Term Funds Caribbean. They have an interesting investment opportunity also in the maritime sector. I just wanted to check if all the panelists are there and have their mic at least unmuted so we know they're there. So, Mr. Telemaque, we send the questions in advance, so I'll just read them. Given the global and regional trends, Mr. Telemaque, what are the biggest business opportunities that you see for the CARIFORUM maritime sector in the coming years? And perhaps now that we've heard about the EPA, you can also share how you think now the EPA can help to convert the opportunities into reality. Mr. Telemaque? Is Mr. Telemaque here? I see Mr. Thomas. I see Mr. Roule also. But Mr. Telemaque, are you here? Okay, while we wait for Mr. Telemaque to open his mic, let me just then go to the question for Mr. Roule. Yes?
Yes, good morning to all. But yes, I was told.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Roule. You have taken the laudable initiative, really, to launch CaribsLink. These are 2 vessels that will offer affordable ocean freight transport for small and medium enterprises between 12 Caribbean islands in the Eastern Caribbean. You are now looking for investors, right? And so, of course, there are challenges. So tell us a little bit, what are the major challenges that you see? Who do you think can help you overcome the challenges? And where do you think the EPA can help? And also, what are you looking for in investors? So tell us a little bit about your project.
Yeah, so I am the CEO of CaribLinks. We were established in 2020. Excuse me. Just in the middle of the COVID. Just in the middle of the COVID. And yeah, so the challenges that we have in the Caribbean island, it's a mix of small amount of cargoes and big varieties of cargo. In all cases, we need to be profitable. So this is a challenge that we need to overcome. So with my partners, the way we see it is that we have to bring innovation. And moreover, we have another challenge in our region is the fact that we are, they call it developed country, but let's go straight to the point and let's call them poor countries. So that means that we need to build a model with a cheap risk cost if we want to open the arbitrations that are for the time being, most of them shut. So this is a time of challenges that we have to overcome, that we are working on. And also there is another big thing is like when we are talking about our market, who we are and what we can represent, it's not an easy call for investors because they don't really see the opportunity in our market. So especially when you work with overseas investors. So ideally, we would have been pleased to work with local partners, local investors, but we have to admit that we are also a poorer region and you don't find that many investors. So maybe today we will see some additional investors, but it's not an easy call. So we have partners and unfortunately they are not that rich. So this is a kind of mix of things with the chicken and the eggs, but in all cases we need to bring ships designed for our region. There is another point where you have all this around this green energy and all that stuff. And I will go straight to the point saying that, okay, we need to go for a greener, we need to go for transition. Okay, I see the point and it makes sense. However, when you pour, you really pay attention to any single penny that you spend. So I would say that naturally when you design ships designed for poor countries and poor regions, it is in the specification of the ships, in the design of everything that you need to pay attention to that. So let's say when you pour, you will not have your AC and your AC, for example, running with your doors open. So this is a big point. And also there is a big tendency saying, yes, they would like to push us to go for newer technologies. So for sure, we have to go to newer technology, but we have also a lack of skills and competency locally. So it's a lot of challenges to overcome. If you really want to go that road, we need to find men and women that are able to handle this type of ships. So I would say that we should go easy, step by step. And in all cases, for our population and for our needs, we need to be cheap. We need to have a low-cost model. And this is what we are working, and this is our challenges.
Thank you. Very interesting. Yes, we are small countries, relatively not that wealthy, and so we need to look for affordable solutions for our problems or for our challenges. That's a very good insight. Thank you. I'll come back to the question in the chat. Very good question. We'll go on to the Ambassador, His Excellency, Ambassador Dr. Thomas. Excellency, through Upturn Funds, you are raising funds for a ferry service between Guyana, Trinidad, and Barbados. How much capital are you trying to raise, and why would you say is this an excellent investment opportunity for Europeans?
Thank you so much for having me and giving us the opportunity to share this compelling project and vision. The project involves not only Trinidad, Guyana, it also involves Barbados, Antigua, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Dominica. So we are actually focusing on moving an actual ferry service and a cargo service between those 7 islands, and then moving a cargo ship with limited passenger capacity between Trinidad, Guyana, and Barbados. And so that's phase 1 in terms of exactly what we're doing. And the approach that we have taken is that we have integrated 4 different streams. We have the cargo stream, which accounts for about 60% of the actual revenue base. And we have partnered and brought into the venture the largest cargo handler in the Caribbean, Rams Logistics, that employs over 1,000 staff within the region. So they are part of the company. And we also have brought in an e-commerce portion of it that is very, very significant. And so what we've done, we brought in one of the top software development companies within the Caribbean that has developed an Amazon-type system actually for the region. And wherever the ships go, that system would be in motion. So you can have a woman from Guyana who is manufacturing soaps from the Amazon. Our warehouse would actually verify the quality of it, and she could sell to another lady in St. Lucia, and she could get that within 2 days. So it allows cross-border trade. So that's a very important component of the business because we're facilitating trade. We also have an agricultural component in which we're going to facilitate B2B, and we're having conversations with a development bank to really foster a trade finance provision. So example, say from Guyana, you have a farm that wants to supply some supermarkets based within St. Lucia. And our trade platform that we're creating with the e-commerce will actually facilitate that. And we're having great conversations with them of being able to provide the finances to be able to upscale to meet those particular needs. And so that's the approach we're taking. We also move in people as well. And we intend to move at least 100,000 people within the first year. We believe that we'll be able to do that very comfortably. And yeah, so those are all the components that we have. So we have a very integrated approach that is designed to facilitate e-commerce in the region, the movement of cargo, and also the movement of agricultural products.
Some of our participants are no longer on the line. And so I think Mr. Telemac is one of them, probably. But very good. Mr. Thomas, you just got stuck, so maybe you want to finish your sentence?
Yes. Okay, so what I'm saying is that, so our approach is an integrated approach. Right. And so because our approach is to generate trade, is to generate the movement of people and e-commerce across the region. And because we have combined all these factors, the actual benefit to the region is very high. And the revenue for investment rates are also very high as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Going back to Mr. Roel, there was a question for you. It says that you, I don't know if you saw it in the chat, which 12 countries are you talking about for Caribs Link?
So the idea would be to service, eventually to service all the Caribbean islands, and but to start with the Lesser Caribbean.
Those are which countries? You said the Lesser Caribbean. Those are which countries?
The Lesser Caribbean. So from let's call it from Saint Martin going down to Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay. So not going eastwards towards the Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, not Jamaica, not Cayman, but Saint Martin coming down the chain.
No, because in all cases we have to start with ships, but eventually the playground will be the Caribbean seas.
Okay, great, thank you. And then there is a question for Mr. Thomas. Would your vessel support standard 20-foot and 40-foot containers?
Yes.
Yes. When do you plan to start? I guess it's a question to both of you. Mr. Are you already busy, or I mean, is your company already operating?
No, I have designed the ship, and we need to build them, and so we hope to be there by 2025.
2025. And Mr. Thomas?
Our plan is to start by autumn next year. So by October, by this time next year, we should be operational.
Okay, I think I'm seeing a connection there because someone is building ships and the other one is both of you are in the same area. So it would be good if you can talk and collaborate in some way or another. That would be very good. That would be, if we were to achieve that, that would be a very concrete positive thing from this webinar. Other questions that we may have, and also there's a few other, Mr. Sars is still on the line, and I think Mr. Kravatsky also. So if you have questions for any of the speakers, myself, Mr. Kiles, anyone, please go ahead and ask them. Oh, there's a question here from Mr. Thomas. Will your e-commerce platform include customs clearance, duties, and taxes?
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will. Okay. Other questions? Mr. Rule, you are in Martinique. That's right? You are in Martinique, right? You're based in Martinique?
No, I am in the next island. I am next by, so I am in Guadeloupe.
Oh, you're in Guadeloupe. Okay, you're in Guadeloupe. Sorry about that. Would there be any difficulties because you are in, or maybe someone else can answer this, in the French countries, the French overseas territories, and then there are the CARIFORUM ones. Would there be any difficulties with that? Extra challenges?
No, we are European and French, and I was born and raised in the Caribbean, so so we are a mix of everything. And if we can be a bridge between Europe, the European communities, the French and the Caribbean island, it will be great. So the idea is to work together.
Yes, if you can be the bridge between Europe, France, and the Caribbean, that would be a very good thing.
That's the idea. But in all cases, the team that is supporting me is a Caribbean team. So we have people from Trinidad, from Barbados, from St. Lucia, Dominica. So this is the situation.
Great. And a question for Mr. Thomas. Two questions. Did you consider Suriname for your venture?
Yes, we are. In fact, our preliminary route, because the routes we have are actually 3 routes, and we intend to expand them, and particularly the route between Guyana, Trinidad, and Barbados. We are definitely exploring that when we do start to quickly include Suriname to that. And I intended to speak to Nico from the port. In fact, I actually told one of my team members to make sure that she got Nico's details, that we need to have a conversation. Okay.
Very good. Excellent. In the chat, Beverly Johnson Green says Mr. Hoole and Mr. Thomas should begin the conversation to look at a charter of suitable vessels to service the Caribbean islands with a direct service. This is a great opportunity for the development of further trade opportunities. Indeed. And then it says also, she says also, they could use the seafarers at the CMU, the Caribbean Maritime University in Jamaica, to operate the vessels. So indeed also to look at Caribbean seafarers who are being educated in the region. That is very good. And for those of you, I'm sure many of you already have a contact with the Caribbean Shipping Association. So that would be, and they have the Maritime University as a, they have a very close relationship with them. So that is a good place to network and perhaps to get investors and partners. That would be very helpful. Actually, we got the name of Mr. Nico Sais through the Caribbean Shipping Association, and we thank them for that.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. But it is not an easy call to find suitable ship for our region. Our region has used to be for years a kind of recycling place for ships that nobody wants. This is not the way we see our region. We love our regions, and definitely we need to bring a new design. We have the brain, we have the team, we are exchanging with the CMU. We are. The idea is really to be a game changer in the region and test a new way of doing business in the region.
Very good, very good. Yes. Other questions?
Yes. I could also share that to give you a sense of the capacity of phase one of the service. We'll have 3 ships. The first would move about 800 people. It would have 200 cabins and also an additional 600 of seating capacity. And so that would be the first ship. The second would have capacity of about 400, and they also have significant capacity to move cargo as well. And the larger ship will also move containers as well. Then we have a third ship that will be moving containers and with limited capacity of 100 passengers. So that's the initial plan that we have. I'm definitely looking forward to speak to my colleague and to see how we can actually work together. I love his vision in terms of building ships and see what we can do as well. Yeah.
Right. Right. I'm gonna post both of your email, not email, your website in the chat, so that people may also contact you. And please also put your own email address if you want in the chat.
Will do.
Yeah. Other questions or input from anyone? No? If not, very good. We are seeing one number there. Okay. Eurocham thanks us for the invitation. If there are questions, I think Mr. Kravatsky put his address in the chat. So if you have questions for Eurocham, please do put it in the chat. Can I ask one of my colleagues to put the contact of Eurochamber from the Dominican Republic also in the chat? Can I ask someone to put that? And Mr. Hoor, someone is asking, do you plan to move less than container loads? I don't know what freight is, I guess freight.
Yes,
Loads.
Yes, definitely. Yes. This is our goal. Yes, to be as close as possible to the consumer, because the need of our SMEs is a bit different from what you see in the so-called developed countries. So as close as possible to cater the service to exactly the needs of the Caribbean people.
Very good, very good. Thank you. So Beverly Johnson says we are the primary cargo consolidators from Jamaica to the Caribbean and the rest of the world. So please contact her. There is the email address of Jean-Marco Pau from the Eurochamber of the Dominican Republic. And assist from Admin Maritime from Dominica is also there. Please go ahead and look at the chat. While I make the final remarks, we'll leave the chat on. Please look at it. You can listen to it, but please look at that one, because that's where all the interesting contexts are appearing.
Yes.
So so thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your ideas. We hope that they will soon be materialized, and that the shipping, both passengers, as the ambassador said at the beginning, and freight, as we've said many times, will be improved in the next 12 to 24 months to the benefit of all the livelihood of all the Caribbean people. So let me make some closing remarks, the main points and findings, opportunities and challenges. We know the maritime sector is important to the Caribbean, to CARIFORUM. We know that there are many opportunities already. We've heard opportunities in in Trinidad and Tobago, very specific opportunities. PPPs in the Dominican Republic, very specific ones. We've heard the opportunities provided, investment opportunities provided by Carib's Link and by Upturn. So yes, there's a way to go, but we also have lots of projects already going on. Please do, if you are an investor interested, look at the procurement, the pages of the Inter-American Development Bank, of the Caribbean Development Bank, for opportunities, and also look at the websites of state-owned enterprises who are in this sector. Yes, there are challenges, opportunities, challenges. One of the challenge, which is also an opportunity, is the transition to green. A challenge is that is also an opportunity is whatever, small sizes, small market sizes, etc., which are to which the EPA and the Global Gateway, EU Global Gateway, provide an answer, or some enhances the attractiveness anyway. Those are the main findings, opportunities, and challenges that we've spoken about. Is there anyone who, I think I heard some sound, so if there's someone else would like to add? In the chat, we also have our brochure, so please download it. There will be a report which will be sent to you, and as you know, there will also be the voice recordings will also be sent to you. If you have not done so, please do fill out the satisfaction or the survey, the evaluation survey. Please fill it out. It is important to us to know how we can do this, improve this for the next time. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the event. It was my pleasure, certainly, to be your moderator. Thank you for your participation.